That fancy wheelchair electric, or just for show? The voice crashed through Rusty Mug Cafe like a sledgehammer through glass, drawing all eyes to the black woman by the window. Jasmine Rivers didn't lift her head. At 42, her dark skin contrasted with silver-threaded braids pulled into a neat bun. Her graceful fingers moved with practiced precision, hands that had learned patience through pain. She wore a burgundy cardigan over a patterned blouse, her lower body motionless, not by choice, but because a car accident 8 years ago had stolen that freedom. Her electric wheelchair hummed softly beside the front window, soaking in the morning light. It was her sanctuary. Quiet, warm, usually unnoticed, but not today. Looks like the cafe installed a mobile parking space for diversity points. The tallest biker, Red, cackled. His buddies, Vic and Lenny, snorted behind him like trained hyenas. Red stepped closer, tapping the back of Jasmine's chair with his boot. She flinched, not from pain, but from the suddenness. The bowl of chili trembled on the tray across her lap. A red splash struck the white handkerchief tied around her wrist, a hand-sewn keepsake from her late mother, the only thing she carried with her every day. "Oops," Red said without an ounce of remorse, watching the dark stain bloom on the fabric. "Maybe next time they'll install you in the back where you belong." A boy sitting with his father near the counter noticed. He couldn't have been more than 10. His eyes locked onto Jasmine's unmoving face. Her lips didn't part. Her hands didn't reach for a napkin. She only drew a breath, deep, deliberate, a breath heavy with years of similar moments she never deserved. Across the cafe, the staff froze. The waitress behind the counter glanced at the bikers, then busied herself reorganizing sugar packets already perfectly aligned. No one moved. No one spoke. In that moment, Jasmine felt truly alone in a crowded room. If you've ever witnessed someone being mistreated and wish people would stand up, show your respect with a comment. "You hear that, boys?" Red said louder. "Not even a thank you. These people never appreciate anything." Jasmine turned slightly, her dark eyes, steady and unwavering, met his. She didn't blink. She didn't speak, but her silence carried weight. The boy tugged on his father's sleeve. The man, middle-aged, mustached, wearing a fire department hoodie, stared a moment longer before sliding his phone out and typing quickly, urgently. At last, Jasmine slowly wheeled herself toward the door. Her wheels gave a soft squeak. Chili dripped from her skirt to the tiled floor. She didn't bother to wipe it away. That handkerchief, her mother's, hung from her wrist, stained like a flag bearing witness to a battle nobody fought for her. "That's right," Lenny called after her. "Roll on out. This place is for paying customers anyway." Jasmine paused at the door, her back straight despite the weight pressing down on her spirit. Without turning, she said softly, "I was a paying customer. I'm just not a staying one." Then she was gone, dignity intact even as her heart cracked. 10 miles away, a phone buzzed on a nightstand in a rundown motel. Amia Cross stirred. She had dozed off, boots still on, arms crossed, back resting against the headboard. Her phone lit up. "She needs you." Red hit again. "It's bad." Amia sat up, her eyes narrowing. The room was dim. A half-packed duffel bag leaned against the door. She hadn't planned on returning to this town. Not now. Not like this. She stared at the message. Her fingers hovered over the screen, then dropped the phone. She laid back down. Silence returned. But the stained handkerchief, the boy's eyes, Jasmine's stillness, they echoed louder than any siren in her mind. 5 minutes later, Amia was behind the wheel of her truck. The heater wheezed as she turned onto the 2-lane highway heading toward Rusty Mug Cafe. She didn't turn on the radio, didn't check the mirror. She just drove, jaw clenched, her military dog tags cold against her chest beneath her sweater. Amia Cross didn't like old roads. They reminded her of places she'd rather forget. Places where silence wasn't peace, but tension pulled tight between heartbeats. Yet here she was, knuckles white on the steering wheel. No music, just the low hum of tires against cracked asphalt. The town came into view. Same water tower, same church steeple, same gas station with the rusted open sign, even though it hadn't pumped fuel in 2 years. She hated that she remembered. As she passed the faded, "Welcome to Brentford" sign, her phone buzzed again. "Mr. Nolan here. Red still at cafe. Jasmine didn't go home. She's just sitting in the park." Amia parked behind the library and shut off the engine. She didn't move, just sat there, breathing deep to steady her nerves. Jasmine, the image of her rushed back, not hurt, not with tears, but years ago at the community center, teaching children despite her own pain. Jasmine was strong like that. Gentle, yes, but never weak. She had been the only one who stayed when Amia returned from deployment, shut down and broken. While others gave space, Jasmine brought food and presents. The kind of silence that says, "You don't owe me anything, but you're not alone." Amia stepped out of the truck and zipped up her coat. The cold stung her cheeks. She took the long way through the park, letting the walk cool her anger. She wasn't here to fight, but she'd fight if she had to. Jasmine sat by the park's fountain, now dry for winter. Her eyes unfocused, hands folded in her lap. Her stained handkerchief was tied neatly at her wrist again, but the chilly blotch remained like a battle scar. Amia approached without fanfare. No one noticed except Jasmine. Her head lifted slightly, and when their eyes met, Amia gave the smallest of nods. "I'm here," she said softly. Jasmine's voice was barely a whisper. "I didn't ask." "I know." A silence passed between them, the kind made of trust, not tension. "You shouldn't have come," Jasmine murmured. Amia raised an eyebrow. "Shouldn't or didn't expect?" Jasmine looked away. In the distance, a motorcycle rumbled past. It wasn't Red. Not yet. But the sound tightened Jasmine's shoulders. "They pushed me today," she said flatly. "I didn't fall. Not really. But they made me feel like I had." "You did fall," Amia said. "You fell into a silence that let them laugh." Jasmine blinked. No one stood up. "I know." Another pause. "Why are you really here?" Jasmine asked, her voice edged with hurt, not accusation. Amia hesitated. She wanted to say, "Because you were there for me when I couldn't say my own name." But what came out was, "Because if I don't show up now, what's the point of all the strength I built?" She reached into her coat pocket and pulled out a folded square, a cleaning cloth, soft and white. Gently, she replaced Jasmine's stained handkerchief with it. "This isn't to replace what you lost," she said. "It's so you can carry something new when we go forward." Jasmine's fingers trembled as they touched the cloth. For the first time in hours, she exhaled with something like relief. "You planning to fight them?" she asked. "No," Amia replied. "I'm planning to show the town what it really looks like when someone stands beside you." The next day, the bikers came back. It was just after 11 a.m., the sun hanging low and cold above Brentford like it had better things to do. Inside Rusty Mug Cafe, Jasmine Rivers was already seated at her usual window, handkerchief neatly folded, tray steady across her lap, chin up. Amia Cross sat across from her, nursing black coffee that had long gone cold. She had insisted on coming back with Jasmine, not to hover, just to be present. A witness that couldn't be ignored. Red entered first, boots thumping like slow thunder on linoleum. Vic and Lenny followed, one chomping gum, the other fiddling with a keychain that looked suspiciously like brass knuckles. The air shifted. Chairs creaked. A spoon clinked against ceramic. No one said a word. "Look who's got company," Red said, eyes landing on Amia. "Upgraded the accessories, huh?" Amia didn't move. Her eyes met his, flat and unblinking. Didn't know the cafe offered security services, Lenny added, grinning. Maybe we ought to get ourselves some, too. Jasmine spoke then, her voice calm but audible. You're not funny. You're not welcome. And you're not invisible anymore. That quiet sentence slid through the room like a warm knife through cold butter. Red's smirk faltered. Amia leaned forward, her voice low. We're not here to argue, but you're done making her feel small. Vic laughed. You think you scare us? No, Amia said, reaching into her coat. But this might. She held up her phone. A paused video filled the screen, one showing Red tipping Jasmine's wheelchair, followed by the laughter, the slurs, the smirks. You went viral. 3,000 views overnight. Brentford's most famous bullies. Silence fell. Red's face reddened. You recorded us without permission. You harassed a disabled woman in public, Amia replied evenly. You don't get to claim privacy when you never gave her dignity. Behind the counter, the waitress, the one who had ignored everything yesterday, finally looked up. Her mouth opened, then closed. Then she turned and walked to the back. Vic reached for Red's arm. Let's go. But Red stayed. You think some likes and shares make you right? No, Amia said. They make you seen. That landed harder than she expected. Red stared at Jasmine, whose face remained still, proud, centered. You going to cry again, little girl, he muttered. Jasmine didn't flinch. No, I'm going to let you finish your tantrum, and then I'm going to keep living here, eating here, working here, because this is my town, too. Red took a step forward. Amia stood. She didn't raise her voice, didn't clench her fists. She simply said, you have 30 minutes. Make your choices carefully. For a beat, no one moved. Then Red turned. Come on. Vic and Lenny followed. The door slammed behind them hard enough to rattle the salt shakers. Outside, the cold had sharpened. The sidewalk glistened with frost. Inside, the cafe remained still. Amia sat down slowly. Jasmine exhaled. I was shaking, Jasmine said, her voice hushed. I know, Amia answered. But you didn't let them see it. That's power. At a table nearby, a man in a Carhartt jacket gave a single quiet nod. A woman 2 booths down tapped something on her phone. Across the cafe, awareness was waking. They'll be back, Jasmine murmured. Amia glanced out the window, her eyes steely. So will we. By nightfall, the video had reached over 15,000 views. Amia hadn't planned it that way. She just wanted truth to breathe outside of Brentford's silence. But once the clip made its way to a few regional veterans groups and disability rights forums, it caught fire. The post she'd written above the video was short, small town, big silence. When they push you down, stand anyway. Hashtag Jasmine River See Not Silent Hashtag Brentford Truth. The next morning, Amia sat on the steps of her rented room above the hardware store, sipping coffee from a chipped thermos. She scrolled through the comments. I served. I see you, Jasmine. Disgusting. Brentford should be ashamed. Thank you for not letting them erase her. Where's the sheriff in this mess? Those men need consequences. And then, of course, the other kind. Bet they edited it to look bad. Why bring race into it? That girl should just stay home if she's so fragile. Typical activist crap. Amia exhaled. The digital world had found its way into the quiet streets of Brentford. And while some people now whispered thanks to Jasmine when she wheeled by, others stared harder, longer, like she'd broken an unspoken rule. That afternoon, Jasmine arrived at the cafe to find the windows covered in streaks of raw egg. A torn note was taped to the door, "Don't play the victim and you won't get hurt." Inside, the manager stood behind the counter, pale and sweating. "I'm sorry," he said, eyes darting everywhere but at Jasmine. "We didn't know the video would make it this far." "You mean you didn't think anyone would care?" Amia said, stepping in behind her. I think it's best you two take a break from coming in. Just till things cool off." Jasmine's mouth opened, closed. She turned her chair away without a word. Outside, the cold wind caught her scarf, whipped it sideways. She didn't fix it. "Is it cowardice?" she asked Amia softly. "Or just fear dressed in manners?" Amia didn't answer right away. Instead, she crouched beside Jasmine, leveled their eyes. "This town was taught to be quiet. You untaught it. That makes you dangerous." A pause. "Are you scared?" Jasmine asked. "I used to be," Amia said. "Now I'm just ready." She reached into her coat and pulled out a small notebook. Inside were names, contacts, people from her former unit, people who owed her favors, people who believed in justice, not noise. Jasmine glanced down. "You're calling in reinforcements." "No," Amia said, "I'm calling in witnesses." That evening, Red posted a clip to his own page. Grainy footage clearly shot on a phone showed Jasmine slowly rolling away from the cafe. Head down, scarf blowing like a surrender flag. His caption read, "See, even the big-mouth sidekick couldn't keep her safe. Ain't no army in Brentford." The comments lit up with jeers, the likes stacked. Amia saw the video while sitting in her truck. The engine off, hands cold. Her eyes didn't narrow. She didn't curse. She simply hit record. Amia Cross, seated in the cab. Dog tags visible. Voice calm and slow. "You're right, Red. Brentford doesn't have an army, but it's about to learn what honor looks like. You've got 30 minutes. She hit send. The clip uploaded and the countdown began. The sound of tires on gravel was the first clue something had shifted. At exactly 2:58 p.m., just as Red settled into his usual booth at the Rusty Mug Cafe, a matte gray SUV rolled into the parking lot. Not flashy, not loud, but unmistakable. Government-issued tires, tinted windows, license plate clean but unreadable in the light. Inside, Red smirked as if nothing had changed. Vic twirled a toothpick between his fingers. Lenny tapped his boots against the underside of the table, glancing toward the door. A hush began to creep through the cafe like fog curling in under the doorframe. Then the door opened. 3 figures stepped in. Not in uniform, but they didn't need it. The first was broad-shouldered, bald, with a slow, measured gait that said more about discipline than injury. The second, lean and silent, wore a heavy coat with a patch from the 3rd Infantry Division. The third, a woman, walked like wind wrapped in steel, posture perfect, eyes scanning like she was still on patrol. They said nothing. They didn't need to. They walked past the tables like ghosts of every vow America ever made but forgot to keep. When they reached the table where Jasmine and Amia sat, they simply stood. Amia looked up. "You're late." The bald man nodded once. "Traffic." Jasmine, seated in her chair with her back straight and her scarf tied tight, turned to them. "Thank you." The woman veteran placed a hand briefly on Jasmine's shoulder. Not soft, not hard, just right. Then the bald man turned to face Red. "We've read the comments," he said calmly. Red leaned back, arms stretched. "What? You going to teach me a lesson?" "No," the man said. "You already failed that class." He reached into his coat and unfolded a document, placed it on the table, a letter from a regional veterans board. Official complaint filed, logged, under review. Red's smirk tightened. The woman spoke next. "You humiliated a disabled civilian. On record, you mocked her, threatened her, followed her, and now you've mocked a veteran who served beside men and women just like us." She took a step closer. "You think this town will protect you, but it won't, because towns remember which side of history they stood on, especially when the footage is this clear. Lenny shifted. Vic looked away. Red, he didn't speak, but the heat in his face betrayed the thrum of something colder than fear. Exposure. Behind the counter, the cafe manager peeked out. Customers stopped pretending to read. Phones were out, some already recording. Amia rose. She walked to Red's booth, placed her hand beside the folded complaint, and said, "We told you. 30 minutes. She stepped aside. Jasmine rolled forward. No announcement, no anger, just presence. She faced Red directly. "I'm not here to watch you apologize. I'm here to make sure you never forget that I existed and you didn't break me." Red looked like he wanted to say something. He didn't. The bald man leaned in close, voice barely above a whisper. "You made a lot of noise, but it only takes one woman rolling forward to make you silent." Then they left, all 5 of them, out the door into the light. A bench sat outside the cafe. Not new, but freshly cleaned. Someone had set a folded blanket on it, the same pattern as Jasmine's scarf. They sat together for a moment, Amia, Jasmine, and the 3 veterans. No words, just presence. Inside, Red stared at the door as if waiting for it to close for good. Outside, Jasmine breathed in the late afternoon air, and for the first time in days, it didn't feel sharp. It felt like steel. The town changed quietly. No parades, no headlines, no mayor's speech. But a week after the confrontation at Rusty Mug Cafe, Red's motorcycle shop was shuttered for renovation. Vic stopped showing up at his usual bar stool. Lenny moved out of town. Or maybe just underground. More importantly, something shifted in the way Brentford looked at itself. At the grocery store, a teenager held the door open for Jasmine. At the post office, someone slipped a handwritten note into her mailbox, "We saw. We're sorry. Thank you." The cafe reopened under new management. The name had changed just a little. The Rusty Mug sign had been replaced with hand-painted letters that now read, Harmony Cafe. Inside, a corner table bore a plaque, "Reserved for Courage." Underneath, a single line in brass, "Justice doesn't knock. It shows up." Jasmine sat at that table now, stirring her coffee. No chili, no stain, just peace. Across from her, Amia tapped a folder against her palm. A grant application for a local program she and Jasmine had started, Wheels Forward, a mentorship group for women with disabilities. "You sure about this?" Amia asked. "I'm not sure about anything," Jasmine said, smiling. "But I've learned that's not a reason to stop." A group of high school students entered, laughing, jackets unzipped. One of them recognized Jasmine and offered a quiet, respectful nod. She nodded back. If this story moved you, please share a comment of respect for those who face discrimination yet keep moving forward with dignity. Outside the window, the bench still sat, the one from that day. Someone had added a small brass plate to it. Amia hadn't seen it before. She stepped outside to read it, "To those who roll forward, even when the road is cracked." She stood there a while, letting the cold air press against her cheeks. It didn't sting. It reminded her she was here, still standing. For those who couldn't.